What happens when an adventurous little armadillo takes kids from Antarctica all the way to Brazil? Meet Arnie, the globe-trotting armadillo, capturing hearts and sparking curiosity everywhere he goes. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Jolene's Books and Writers Talk, sponsored by Southern Dragon Publishing. I'm your host, Jolene McFadden, and today we're diving into the colorful world of children's literature with North Carolina author Eden Estabrook. Eden is the creative mind behind Arnie the Armadillo Goes to Antarctica and Arnie the Armadillo Goes Backpacking in Brazil. With a background in content marketing and a true love for storytelling, she's bringing adventure, learning, and literacy to the next generation, one armadillo adventure at a time. Stay tuned as Eden shares her journey from indie publishing to book festivals, creative story times, and even alpaca farms. You don't want to miss this inspiring conversation.
Hi, I am Eden Estabrook. I'm the author of Arnie the Armadillo, which is two children's books. The first being Arnie the Armadillo Goes to Antarctica, the second one being Arnie the Armadillo Goes Backpacking in Brazil. If you're sensing a theme, yes, you're thinking correctly.
Are you a member of the Society of Children's Authors and Illustrators group?
I'm not yet. No, it's in on my list. So I've been doing this since November 1st, 2023. And a membership with that has been like on the radar.
Do you have a children's writers group in your area that you participate with?
When I got started with things, I found a Facebook group led by Mr. J, the author of Ricky the Rock That Does That Can't Roll. He's a very successful indie children's book author, and he started a Facebook group. It was really helpful learning a lot of those firsts. Oh, where do I find an ISBN? Or just those small things that once you know them, but if you don't know them, then you're like, where do I start? So that's been my hub for indie information and like how to publish and self-publish in the children's author space. And that one is dedicated to children's book authors.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And independent author, did you
Yes.
use the services of just KDP or have you gone wide with Drafted Digital or English Sparks?
A lot of people ask me that. Technically speaking, I am self-published by Amazon KDP. I don't really advertise Amazon though. When I first published it back in 2023, I received a lot of the books. I ordered my author copies and the quality was subpar. For adult fiction, you can get away with that. For children's books, I would argue that's not a good situation because kids are not gentle with books.
Right.
So I went and found my own printer here in the States. I distribute and print my books independent of Amazon. Yes, you can still order it on Amazon, and I always tell people, yes, you can, but then Amazon is going to print it and it's not going to be the same quality. Yes and no. For the second book, I just pretty much did the same thing. I just went straight to my printer, said, I'm publishing a new book. Here's the print files. We figured out the print files. I ordered a quantity. And Amazon doesn't have scale of quantity pricing for their books. So regardless of whether I buy 1,000 or 100, it's going to be one price. So with an
Right.
offset printer, I can actually, if I were to purchase 1,000 books, I could actually get it at a lower cost per book versus Amazon. It sounds more complicated or helpful, but yes and no. I'm self-published by Amazon, but I went rogue.
No, that's great news. Do you mind me asking who your offset printer is?
Yeah, Formats Printing. They're based in Missouri. I personally love them because they're US based. The books get to me quickly, so I don't have to worry about really long lead times, which was something that I heard was a challenge with a lot of authors who print overseas. It definitely has price benefits, but also I was able to print competitive to Amazon with Formats.
Okay.
My first batch was, I think, maybe 10 cents more expensive, but the quality of the books were far superior. The parents comment on how sturdy they feel for a paperback because I don't print hardback because that's just a little
Oh,
too expensive right now.
that was my
Um,
next question.
Yeah, no, I don't print hardback, which some parents will question that decision. First of all, I'll pick up one of the books, and once they do, they can really feel the difference. I know we're on a video, so I can't really demonstrate that. But one of the stories I like to tell is I was doing an event once, and it was in the winter, and I had a hot chocolate, and my table wasn't locked underneath. So the table folded in on itself, and the hot chocolate spilled over all of the books on my table, which was very sad. It was about 10 books. I was able to wipe them all off, and the covers maintained their integrity. I wouldn't still sell them just because they had hot chocolate spilled on them. Like, from an ethical standpoint, I couldn't do that. But I was able to donate them to like little free libraries because everything was intact. The cover wasn't even warped, even after me wiping it off with a wet paper towel and a wipe. So I use that as a testament to what a good quality book, even a paperback, can do. Is And I always tell parents that, like, if it's spilled on, it's laminated, it's okay, because it's not that really flimsy paper that you might think of when you have like maybe an adult book where it uses more standard paper because it's being held by people that don't always draw things on it.
You may want to consider having a special edition hardback, but print it through Ingram Sparks
Yeah,
and just try it to see it, because they
yeah.
do have various papers, weights, and cream or white or whatever. I understand their ink is not as good.
I've heard issues about the colors and they're like it being really faded. I'm not close to the idea. I think this year might be a good year to figure out what some different options, because I do know that not having a hardback here in Charlotte, at least where I live, I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Our particular library system doesn't take paperbacks, they only take hardbacks, which makes sense because it's being thrown into bins and like all that. So I know I would like to eventually bring a hardback to life just so that I can engage more with my local library system. But I have heard Ingram Sparks is the place to do that. But the biggest concern has always been that the ink quality.
Yes, because they do the digital files, so you have to make sure you
Mhm.
convert it to CM.
Yeah, CMYK.
XK.
Yeah.
But being as Ingram Spark is doing it, their catalog is sent to your local libraries nationwide and
Yeah,
bookstores. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
you don't get as much money because, you're paying for the printing costs and you may only get
Yep.
$1 a book or something, but
It's the
it's
same thing with Amazon. Yeah.
it's an avenue to explore in the future.
It is, absolutely. Absolutely.
Alrighty, as a children's author, do you do your own illustrations or do you pay somebody to do them?
Yeah, that's always going to vary by the author. Some people do both. I have an illustrator. Her name is Preston Anderson. You can see her name on the books. She's actually local here in North Carolina as well. So I was like, whenever I
Nice.
do markets and stuff, I always like to tell people this is a North Carolina made book. So from the illustrator to the author, and US made as well, since I get it printed here in the States. She did a great job. Arnie the Armadillo does Antarctica was the first, and she got to create Arnie the Armadillo. And I think he's adorable. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at him, but I think he's cute. I can see him on my shirt. Yeah, there he is.
Yes, he's very, very cute. You're starting out. I know you said you're very active in Charlotte, but have you been to many book events specifically?
I have, yeah. So we have some local book festivals here. The Lexington Book Festival, the Lexington, North Carolina, I should say, not to be mistaken with the Lexington, Kentucky Book Festival. So I have been to that one. We have a really big one that I wasn't able to make it to this year, but I'm hoping to next year. It's called Bookmarks. It's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I've also been to some just overall larger book events hosted by like our local nonprofits that work in the book desert sphere. I do a mix of events just as a children's book author. Book signings are a little less popular for children's books just because we tend to do
Yeah.
story times. So I do a lot more like story times that then lead to signing books for kids and parents afterwards. As I'm looking going into 2025, looking to branch out and doing some more book events because I do think it's really fun to be able to just be in a room with other authors. A lot of times, story times or even just general markets, I tend to be the only one. It's nice to have a few events where I can just hang out with other people who understand a lot of the same challenges that you go through as an author and can even speak wisdom into some of those challenges so I'm not doing it in a silo.
Oh, that's great. As a indie author, most of us have a limit as to what we'll be willing to pay for events. Have you set that up in your business plan?
Yeah, so it depends on the season. I have a spreadsheet. Every single event I've attended, as well as fees and how much I've made at each of them.
Okay.
Because I've noticed that, at least here in my area, I know which cities I sell better in. So if there's an event opportunity in County A and it costs $60 to be there, if I know I sell well in County A, then I'm more inclined to do it, even though that's higher than I would prefer for it to be. Versus if I were to go to County B and they're wanting to charge $25, but I know I don't sell super well, it may not be worth the same level of effort, especially since I think the one downside of being an author is you can't outsource yourself. Like you have to go to the events. People don't want to buy a book from anybody other than you, with the exception of like your retail partners at bookstores. But if you're doing an event, you have to go. I really spent a lot of last year evaluating the different counties, which ones I sell best at, and then which ones at what fees I have the better chance of making back just based on that past experience. So $60 is really like my worst case scenario cap. I really don't like to go any higher than that. The exception is during December because nothing is that cheap in December. Everybody usually raises those prices a little bit just because people are shopping a little bit more. And I've not ever lost money even on more expensive fees in December. It all depends. If I enter into an unfamiliar area, I try to have it be a cheaper fee just so that if I do lose money or I don't make that, I can at least not lose as much. But yeah, that's the long-winded answer. Consult the spreadsheet and
See,
make
that's
a
a good
decision.
idea. So as a children's author, do you ever attend like farmers markets or fruit
Not farmers
festivals or
markets. Yeah, not farmers markets. I've not thought that would be the best fit, but I do a lot of like local small business markets. We have several centrally located about three major counties here in the North Carolina area. I tend to just loop around. I sell better in certain counties than others just because certain areas are more family centric. That's where I learned I make the most money is if I'm in a spot where there's more families, that which makes sense. I'm a children's book author. A lot of people know Charlotte as a banking area. Those sort of areas aren't really the spot for me because it's a lot more younger people that don't have kids yet or have just started their career, entered into the workforce. Like they're not needing to buy a book quite yet. So I tend not to go into those areas as a result.
have you
Yeah,
ever done
it's
any at the state parks? Sometimes the state parks has a lot of events and some author events as well.
I don't think I've tried a state park. I do some with nonprofits. We have several event organizers here in Charlotte that I really like working with. And then ultimately, though, my goal is to partner with my bookstores so that we
Right.
can sell books for them. My second book, Arnie the Armadillo, goes backpacking in Brazil. That one actually launched on November 30th. I'm not really working with new locations. I'm mostly working with my existing bookstore partners to sell books for them and introduce that book to their clientele. So it's a win-win for both of us because they make money and I make money.
It's a suggestion. I know here in
Yeah.
Florida, several of our state parks do have author events because we have a lot of memoir writers and history
Mhm.
writers and
Yeah.
hiking, camping, any books that have to do with the state park system or the ecosystem or culture.
Yeah.
Those are always
Yeah.
invited. Florida Folk
Absolutely.
Festival is in
Mhm.
Memorial Day weekend. That's at Stephen Foster State
Mhm.
Park here in White Springs. That is a
That's
3 day
true.
event. It's huge.
Wow.
And people sell books, t-shirts. They come in and
Wow.
I'm thinking your armadillo would fit right in with these
No,
people.
probably.
So look for their application in
Yeah,
November and it's
I
called the
will.
Stephen Foster Folk Culture Center State Park. It's a really long name,
I
but
will
it's right
definitely
on the
look into
Swanee
it. Yeah.
River. You bring a tent and you stay for 3 days.
Wow.
You sell your books and your t-shirts. And anyway,
Nice. No, I always appreciate a tip. We'll always look into.
for the last several years, they don't charge a fee. They ask for a percentage of sales as a donation.
Okay. It's
And I
nice.
think they're still doing that, but you do have to put in your application. You have to fill it out. They check
Yeah.
you out to make sure your books are significant, at least has something
Yeah.
to do with nature or history or
Gotcha. Both books are set in different nature settings. They're animals.
there you go. It might be something you want to consider.
Maybe.
Just saying.
Maybe. I'll always take a tip for new events.
The other thing I was going to suggest is all your state parks, you might want to contact them. One more question. What 2 tips would you give to somebody just starting out in the children's book area?
The first would probably be don't be afraid to come up with creative ways of sharing your book with the audiences. I guess like an example is I have an alpaca in my first book, and I thought how fun would it be to bring part of that to life for the kids. So I reached out to a local alpaca farm and was like, can we do a story time on your farm where we can do a story time and then follow it with an alpaca interaction? And they actually said yes.
Wow,
So
cool.
I think not being afraid to think outside the box on like how can you bring your book to life for the kids in a fun, creative way. And that would lead into my second thing, which is don't be discouraged if you're rejected or told no. I think a lot of times we have a hard time dealing with stores saying, no, I don't want to carry this, or no. Or I've had kids walk up to my booth, look at the book, and say, no, I don't want it. It's just the way that it works for bookstores. A lot of times it's not personal. They have very limited book space. And if they just don't feel like it's going to sell, like they know their clientele best. So get used to being told no, but don't let that stop you and just consider using your creativity to think of new ways, as I said, to get your book in front of other audiences. Whether that's do you have an animal involved? Can you do something at a zoo? Or where can you go? So those would be my 2 tips, just based on my long 1 year experience as a
Hey,
children's
that's
author.
one more than some people have.
That is true.
And lastly, what 2 things you just don't like about being a children's author or the process of being a children's author, I should ask?
Yeah, so I'm a one-woman show, so that means I do everything from CFO, CMO, all the things. And the stereotype is real with me. I am not good at math and stuff. So the business side has been a learning curve. I do the best I can, but every so often I'm reminded that I'm just not good at that side of things. The one-woman show of everything, I don't necessarily know if it's not I don't like it. It's not in my strong suit. So it makes things less fun. I like being able to go out and talking to people about the book, not sitting behind a computer and trying to crunch print costs, and if I buy this many books or this, or if I send it to this store I only make this much, and all the math behind it. And honestly, that's probably the biggest thing. That and that you're working with kids are unpredictable. It's a different type of interaction versus when you're not selling, you're selling to kids, but you're ultimately selling to parents. So it's like a different way of marketing where you're like you need to convince 2 different people, like it's
Yeah.
2 different sides, the value of your book. So just a different mindset to approaching things. But I wouldn't ultimately say I still enjoy the challenge. It's just that it's a challenge.
I love teaching kids, and I was a work camper for a number of years with the state of Florida, and we did dress up pioneer days, and I taught kids how
Yeah.
to make the corn husk dolls. It is the only time I've ever been sick. All my
Yeah.
kids are grown and gone, and we rarely
Yeah.
interacted with children when we were work camping because we would be cleaning. But how do you keep yourself healthy when you're in an environment with a bunch of children?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that because I've not gotten sick since I started. My immune system just might be that amazing, which has always surprised me because of how much time I do spend with kids. I'm an author part-time. I also go to an office during the day. I'm with people a lot. This particular December, we had something going around here in Charlotte, and I was like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I take elderberry syrup, so maybe that actually works.
I'll try anything, to be honest. I've started taking
Exactly.
vitamins, but when you isolate like that, it was just me and my mom and my oldest daughter, and
Yeah.
we were in the woods and we had all that nice fresh air and no germs for 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden we were at a park with 100 school
Yeah.
age kids running around. And I was sick
Yeah.
for
And
three
that
days.
well, maybe that's the thing is I'm out and about so much. My immune system is just used to being out. So maybe that's the secret. I don't know. Maybe that and the elderberry. I feel very blessed, not gonna lie, because I have a lot of other authors and teachers who talk about back to school, back to illness, and I have not dealt with that yet. I have done school visits, and I've still not gotten sick.
Fingers crossed for you.
I know.
Knocking on wood here.
I know. It would be my luck that I record this and then I get sick the week of the festival.
All righty. Thank you so much for participating in both halves.
Thank you for joining me, Jolene McFadden, on this episode of Jolene's Books and Writers Talk. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with today's guest and found inspiration for your own reading and writing journey. The show is brought to you by Southern Dragon Publishing, helping authors publish, market, and share their stories with the world. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend who loves books as much as you do. Until next time, happy reading, keep writing.